The reusable workflow we just created only uses a couple of columns that are available everywhere. They're available anytime you have a new document or a new item. But often you'll want to create a workflow that actually needs to store some information in a column. And you want to make sure that that column appears in the list or in the library that you're attaching this workflow to. So 2 ways you can think about doing this. One way is to create a content type. That's a group of columns together that underlie a particular list or many lists. For example, there's a group of columns under the content type for contact. And if we go take a look at that, you'll see many familiar columns that you're used to seeing in contact lists. So every contact list that's built using the contact list content type has all of these columns in it. So that's one possibility. Another possibility, though, is that you don't necessarily need to have a whole lot of columns, and the columns that you need don't constitute an entire type, like an entire contact. They're just a couple of columns that you need to have every time this workflow runs because it requires them. So in that case, our other choice is called association columns. If you associate a column with a reusable workflow, then when we add that workflow to a list or library, the associated columns are automatically also added to the list or library. So let's see how we would associate columns with this workflow. Specifically, the column I'm looking for is a column that will include category because we want to categorize all of the items that are submitted, and when we provide the feedback that says, hey, we got your document or we got your item, we're also going to say, and we put it in this category. So let's just go associate that with the reusable workflow, and then obviously we would add some other steps to assign a category based on a number of different criteria, or perhaps we would have a human do that and we would ask them to make that decision. But let's go ahead and choose association columns. Every time you click that button, you're going to get this warning that looks really dire. It says if you change these association columns for the workflow, then new instances of the existing associations might not work. That's actually true, but it's not a problem, and we're going to see this every single time we click the button. And now what we're going to do is select a column. Now there's 2 ways we can choose a column. There's that entire bank of columns that sits underneath the existing content types that I just showed you. And my first choice for you will always be to go look at the site columns and see if the column we want already exists. And the reason for that is you don't need to have 2 different fields, one called first space name and the other called first name with no space, because you didn't bother to check. Or more likely, someone else didn't bother to check. They just went, oh, I need a new column, let's make one. So we'd like to use the site columns as much as we can, because if we have a site column, then we can build business requirements into that site column. For example, if we have an employee ID that has a particular pattern, we'll create that as a site column once, use it over and over again, and if we change our formatting for employee ID, we change it in just one place. So there's real power to these site columns. Think of them as global site columns. And I'm looking for category. And I actually find the category field appears a couple of times. One is a base column and one as a core document column. I'm just going to go ahead and choose category because it's singular and say OK. And I have now added the category association here to this workflow. If I want to remove a category, I can remove it from here. Removing it will still leave it in the list, and so I might need to go do some cleanup, and I'll be prompted to do that. But this is all good. I have this extra column that I need, and later on when I associate my email submitter reusable workflow with a particular list or library, it will automatically get an instance of the category column added to that list or library. That's how association columns work. Okay, save, publish, and we're all done.